got some lovely people from the Azure team here today to help answer any questions you have about the cloud. Christina Morin, come on over.
Hi, Christina. I'm Christina. I'm a cloud developer advocate based in Redmond, and I also do a lot of things with Channel 9 or youtube.com/Microsoft Developer. And if you ever go to any of the Microsoft Learn videos, me and actually my colleague Sonia are both in some of those. But I try to help people learn the cloud and also try to take feedback I do take feedback directly from our product teams so that we can fix things that might not be working as well as they should be, or if there are things that we don't have support for that would be good to have support for, let us know. Those things where we really take that feedback seriously, and we work directly with product teams to try to make Azure as good of a service as it can be for them.
Hi, I'm Sonika. I'm based up in Brisbane, and I'm a cloud ops advocate and I love Windows Server. So my team has only existed for about the past 6 months. We have a full focus on our IT pros and our systems administrators, all those people that have had a background of doing IT operations in a more traditional on-prem environment and talking to them about how to move to a cloud operating model, or in most cases actually move to a hybrid model instead. So I'm also on a bit of a journey with all this coding dev stuff because it's starting to work with things like PowerShell scripts and automation, and some of the infrastructure as code that we're building, like the JSON files. It's a whole new world to me. So I'm really looking forward to learning with some of you along the way as well.
Tell them you moved from, so Sonia moved from insider to employee.
Yeah, so I got this amazing dream job at Microsoft because I was doing work in the community. I was an Office 365 MVP and I've been a Insiders MVP, and just through blogging and tweeting and participating in community events, kind of getting someone reaching out and going, hey, you're good at this community stuff, do you want to come and do it and get paid for it? So.
Hey folks, my name is Blake Lennon. I work for Gone on the Linux Insider Program. About 50% of the time I spend thinking about data and analytics that are inside the Insider Program, and the rest of the time I spend thinking about Whip for Business, which is our IT Pro offering. The reason we're here in Australia right now is for Ignite Tour, so we just spent the last 2 days speaking with folks about how they're using Insider Preview built inside their organization to get ready for the next version of Windows. Something like over 80,000 organizations around the world that are currently participating in the Insider program, so it's taking off, and we're trying to meet you guys where you are. So we have a number of different tools to help Insider builds get into your organization. If that's what you're choosing to do, is you go from replace the operating system once every 5 to 10 years to replace the operating system about once every 6 months. So that's what I do, and I think, is there anything else?
About Microsoft. Tell them about Microsoft.
Yes, so the Microsoft Insiders programs, there's a couple of them. There's the Windows Insider program, there's the Office Insider program, there's a SwiftKey Insider program, and so we're working to bring together these different programs under a single umbrella. It really came from our IT Pro community that says, hey, we're managing more than just Windows. We want to be able to say what's coming next for Office, what's coming next for Intune, what's coming next for all of these tools from Microsoft, and how can we use this better inside of our organization. And so that's what we're trying to get to with a joint Microsoft Insiders program, and we need your help crafting along the way. Tell us what we're missing, tell us what we need to do to get better. There is a short URL you guys can go to, aka.ns/Microsoft Insiders, and that will, or M365 Insiders, and that will let you get early access to the early access program.
All right, Chief Taco Head Officer, 1 minute.
Those online. There's a few points that I want to hit on real quick. Sounds like the mic keeps cutting out. It's kind of weird. So we launched. What's up? Hello. Hello. Okay. I don't know what's going on here. I'm gonna talk.
You want the other one?
Yeah, if it works. This one's cutting. This one's cutting it out. This one's not working at all.
it on? It's way too on.
Turn it off and then on again.
I know.
Hello?
Maybe it's not.
Hello?
Hi. Okay. Let's see if this is. Nope. In and out. Don't you love it? Love it when people get together and you can't make this effort. So real quick, updates on the program. There's a few things I want to cover. I'm just gonna yell.
Just yell.
Sorry. So, well, I'm next to the mic so the people on the web can hear me, and I'll just kind of yell out at everybody. So, a few updates for the program. Number one, obviously, we launched Skip Ahead this week. That was exciting. So, 20H1, kind of a bit of a surprise, right? There's some, to cut to the chase and answer questions that have been flying around the internet. Let's just get it addressed and move on past it. There's some stuff we are working on that takes longer than normal to work on, right? Normally we'd be doing 19H2. People are like, ooh, what's going on here? That's really nothing super crazy. Skip Ahead is literally that. It's skip ahead. And so instead of skipping ahead 3 months, we decided to skip ahead a little bit further. So that's what that is. That's really all it is. There's nothing super, super secretive about it. We just got some cool stuff that we're working on, and that's that, right? So there you go. No fast builds this week. I will tell you why. There was a bug introduced that affects third-party antivirus clients. Nobody wants to be without their AV clients. We do not want to make the operating system less secure, and we don't want to put you through hoops trying to use software that you don't normally use. So we didn't launch the build. Pretty straightforward, right? That's the joy of living in the fast lane. So no build. What else? Brandon, is there anything that I should tell people? Brandon's been, obviously with me traveling this week, I'm connected but slightly disconnected. So, okay, Brandon said I covered it. Perfect. All right. So real quick, I do want to say, I know I mentioned this earlier, but for all of you sitting in this room, thank you for taking your time to come hang out with us. Number one, it's a weekend for you. Number two, I have been informed that because of the location of the store and where folks normally live, the traveling back and forth can be either not your normal thing or maybe a little bit of pain. So I really appreciate each and every one of you coming and taking the time to come hang out. It means a lot, right? We're here for Ignite the Tour, but I mean the store being here and having a chance to come and hang out with some insiders, right? It's the thing that makes my job, and all of us love doing this stuff. So here we are. So hopefully this is going to be as fun for you as it is for us. I know part of what we're doing today is an AMA, right? So you get to ask us all kinds of random questions, and if we can answer it, we can answer it. If we can't answer it, we'll give you a loving smile and be like, sorry, I can't answer it, right? I'm sure that'll happen at some point. Donna, you want to come join me up here?
I think everyone should.
Blair?
And you can use the mic, just hang out over here.
Yeah. So,
What do we do?
yeah, use the mic if you want. It's totally fine.
Grab seats.
Yeah, grab seats.
Am I blocking everyone? Yeah.
No, I think we'll be good.
Cool.
I'm at least gonna try to pitch sideways. So I can
This
see
is
the camera
weird.
and-
Okay. Yeah, this is weird.
All right, so here's my first question for all of you. Who's gonna be the first one that's brave enough to ask us a question?
She's got one.
Oh, we got two at the same time. Go for it. Here, let me give you a mic.
Jason is running the mic. Okay, let me look at questions here.
When you encrypted email, and you obviously it's restricted access, you give the name of the person that you want when you forward it to, but I can't access it. So what's the alternative for them to access it when it's already encrypted? Request for encryption, it comes up blank.
I don't know how to answer that question.
What was the question?
You encrypt an email and send it.
Yes.
The other person can't actually decrypt it to read it. I think it has a lot to do with what service you're using to encrypt the email. I'm not sure. What's that?
An
I know
EMS
nothing
file?
about that software, unfortunately.
EMS file. All right, Sonia.
Have at it.
The answer is it's complicated. So something to
to do with private and public keys and how you decrypt it on your end, and it can either be a problem at the sender's end or it can be a problem at your end. So it's not something that there was one easy straight answer for. It's going to require a bit of troubleshooting with your IT person at Microsoft to figure out why it's not. It should work, yes, but obviously something in the chain between the keys is stopping it. So it's definitely a technical support case that would need to be looked at on a case-by-case basis.
You all go to the beach?
No, I spent no time in the sun at all. Zero.
Neither did we.
I was walking to the conference.
Probably everyone at home is wanting to know, do you have a good candidate for a slowing build?
Okay. Yeah. If there's more to the question, I can answer that. But I mean, so just in case you didn't hear it there, is there a good candidate for a slow build? So if you've noticed in the blog notes, there's been a long-standing known issue related to BattleEye / Fortnite, which is not Fortnite specific, right? It's related to BattleEye. Hopefully y'all can hear it. No? Okay.
No.
All right, well, let's try the mic thing again.
Try the mic thing.
Sorry, everybody. All right, there we go. All right, so if you are watching the Fast Ring blog notes that are coming up, there's been a long-standing, multiple-week known issue related to BattleEye, right? It affects big name games such as Fortnite, which hopefully everybody knows what that game is by now. You can play it because of the gamer population within the slow ring, right? That is the sole reason we haven't released the slow ring build. It's not because of any other major bugs that are only not meet the quality bar or holding us back. It's that one particular bug. And simply because of the nature of the bug, it requires us to work directly with BattleEye as a partner because of some changes that have been made. I can't get into all the details instead of like change and all that kind of stuff. But let's just say it's good changes to me for a very good reason. But there obviously is some end user impact. So there are discussions as to whether or not we should release it to slow with that being no issue. But as you can imagine, users in the fast ring aren't necessarily getting all that happy about getting this stuff. You do hit it in machine rescreens and reboots. So it's not exactly the most pleasant scenario. We don't lose data, it doesn't corrupt your files or anything, it's just bad experience. So if we were confident that folks in the slow ring could get by without playing games that use the BattleEye service, we could have dropped the build and go so it's really hinging on the decision, and there are people who have been great working on that decision.
And it's also worth noting that different quality bars for fast and slow. Slow is what we recommend that organizations run their devices off of. And so if there is something that is specific to BattleEye, but if there are issues that would block an enterprise from being productive on a slow ring build, that is going to be something that prevents us from shipping it.
First off, thanks for holding this. It's very cool. Also, the sessions that you had at the night with the ICC were superb. I thought it was an excellent turnout.
Thanks.
It was really cool. So really appreciate all the hard work that you done. So my question is, from an enterprise perspective, it would be very useful to have the facility to be able to configure a machine for a Windows Insider without having to go through all the steps to do it manually. So what I'm talking about is a workflow, a Windows Store app, or an MS that we could use which would go through, configure the telemetry, that would make sure that the user is a local administrator, any other settings that need to be looked at often get missed before you can actually roll that person into becoming a Windows Insider. That would help enterprise organizations, especially if you could do it in a bulk manner as well. You could have not just 10 or 20 individuals, but hundreds of them. And that would be, that's my question.
Sure.
I'm really glad Blair's here to answer this.
That is common feedback, and we have addressed hopefully be able to register your domain with the Insider program, and then depending on what kind of management technology you guys are using internally.
I'm aware of the
Okay,
a lot of that. It's literally like a three-click wizard that will be able to configure that machine because what happens is it tends to be quite a manual process. You've got to set the new policy, you've got to get that policy applied to the machine. There might be, you've got to make sure that user account who's logging in can also has to be part of the Insider program.
So if you have your domain, it'll be user specific.
Yeah.
It'll be specific, and it's not a user thing. In terms of an easy button, I think that's away from the general management policies. We are trying to meet you guys wherever your management is, and so if it's a GPO shop, Intune shop, or SSM shop, that's what we've built everything for. Is there another tool that you're using to manage? And you're like, hey, this is
No, pure Microsoft, pure policies, config manager, current branch, all that stuff. But it just feels like instead of it just being quite straightforward to roll somebody into the Insider program, it takes maybe 10-15 minutes of making sure and it would be good if people just do that in a very straightforward manner.
That's really good. It's good feedback.
Yeah, great feedback.
That's good feedback
Yes.
for us to go yell at someone.
Thank you.
We're really good at yelling. Okay, so this thing, make a back there.
So we miss Brandon. One of our insiders came by the booth and gave us ball hats for Brandon and this Brandon figure.
So Brandon, here's a tiny Brandon figure who we brought, or who Daniel brought to hang out with us on the webcast. And yes, this is your hat that I'm wearing.
He says thank you.
Yes, he does say thank you.
Yeah, my hearing is really loud and great, so I'm actually not going to be saying, but I want to ask one question before I leave, and that is whether Microsoft can give us back Skype 7. Skype 8 is a total disaster for all its desktop users, and everybody is deserting Microsoft to go to WhatsApp and a whole range of other programs, so I'd like to get that message back to Microsoft, give us back Skype 7 and make Skype 8 reflect all of the features of Skype 7, which we really need. Thanks. So,
That's great feedback. Thank you very much. What are some of the features? What are some of the features in Skype 7?
to be honest, I can't think of anything good about Skype 8. It's too wide, you can't narrow it, it doesn't sort your contacts, you can't get rid of the pictures on the icons. I've got 15 on a page instead of 24 on my service book. I have 2 service books and 1 service pro, so I do like Microsoft, and I'm really hoping that you can do something about it. I haven't met anybody with a desktop or a notebook computer who likes it. And it's great if you're using a cell phone or whatever, but on a computer it's completely useless.
That's very good feedback. Thank you.
Jason's writing it down.
Yep.
Thank you. Other questions while they answer something?
Hey guys, welcome to Sydney.
Thank you.
I've got 2 questions for you actually. First one is, can we expect to see sets back in any sort of form anytime soon?
I can't answer that because then I'll be unemployed.
Okay, fair enough. Second question is, around the new version of Edge that has been announced, moved to the Chromium-based version of Edge. Can we expect all the things, all the existing enterprise type features like application guide to be available in that new version of Edge as well?
Do you want to answer?
I mean, as I don't work in the Edge team, I can't give you a 100% perfect answer, but I would be surprised if they deprecated it. Given that all it's obviously they're changing the migrated engine, right? That's the whole purpose of doing the Chromium. But the feature work and what's been put into it, I'd just say this, I'd be surprised if they don't bring it forward.
I can do this too.
So I also work with the Edge team, but I've been in contact with them, and I can't speak definitively, I don't want to promise anything, but I do know from talking with them, we've had these conversations, that the goal is to try to make things as seamless for everyone as possible, and there are a lot of really good reasons why they make the move that they're making, but the goal is certainly not to do away with everything that exists in Edge as it is right now.
Are you in the Edge Insider program?
Sure am.
Good. So they look at feedback like every 5 minutes. I'm not kidding. They're one of the best teams we work with who look at feedback and actually address things. So send that feedback loud and clear, and we will make sure to amplify it as well, because those are features that are incredibly important that we've been talking about to companies forever. Right? How to keep your boss within links. Oh my God. Right? Everyone's got that issue. How many of you have a boss who clicks links or a family member who clicks links that they should not? Yeah, we all have that person in our life. So AppGuard is so useful for that. So we will carry this feedback back, but please leave it for the Edge team, because as they build Chromium from scratch, this Chromium Edge version, it's so important that they take in feedback on day one rather than trying to undo and fix later.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeremy's my name. I do have a follow-on question from that in regards to Edge. So I run and manage a small business environment. We have about 20 users. Everyone uses Office 365. I'm one of the only insiders. But because we use SQL, we've kind of grown up from SBS 2003. We have a Windows server in a domain environment. I cannot have my Microsoft account on my service book and have a domain joined and sync my settings. And this is a bit of feedback that has been posted all over the feedback board, and it has been completely ignored by Microsoft authorities, for want of a better phrase. And it's just very frustrating because no one in our organisation uses Edge. Everyone uses Chrome. I can use Chrome just fine with my sign-in. And for some reason, someone in your organisation has decided that IT professionals do not want to allow someone to have a Microsoft account associated with their domain joined PC. Why are you limiting that? Because no one will use Edge on the planet until you move past some, roadblocks like this, because there would have to be organisations outside out there, and not a single person can actually use Edge because they can't sync their favourites, they can't sync any of their settings. It's a really big roadblock.
That's very, very good to hear. You will be pretty happy with the changes that we make going forward. But also, I'm really glad that you're actually thinking about Edge in the enterprise. That's really important, because we do want Edge to be the browser that is best for businesses, right? Whether it's business that you do from your phone or business that you do on a PC, we do want it to be the most secure, enterprise-friendly browser. So Jason's written it down. We will yell. Really good at yelling.
Just as a random note, that's one of the favorite parts of my job, is when either a piece of feedback doesn't get enough attention, or if there's a bug that's not being fixed, I'll just say fast enough. I like when they're knocking on people's doors. It's always different when you send them an thing versus showing up and like, hi, I'm Jason on your own. There's something different about saying I'm somebody in person that changes the dynamic of the interaction. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've learned from going from an outsider to a Microsoft employee is it's given me access to see the depth of some of the technologies that we're working with. I can understand. I worked in small and medium business for 14 years, so I know you will and understand how some of these things look like they should be really simple, and they're frustrating when they don't do the use case that you want them to do, you expect them to do. The thing is that Microsoft has pretty much 3 different identity spaces, right? So we've got Active Directory on-prem, we've got Microsoft accounts, and we've got Azure Active Directory. And the power and the complexity behind those sort of 3 different spaces and getting them to talk, it's pretty impressive. I can't make any promises by the way about whether it will or will not happen, but I'm just saying as an insider now I have a better understanding of why some of these things do take time or aren't technically possible or do require a significant amount of engineering at this point than I am. So hence your patience.
I love having Sonia with us now. It's awesome. Yeah.
Okay, my name's Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Work here.
Yay!
Wait, you work at the store?
Yeah.
All right.
I am, yes. And my question is actually regarding my secret. So on Skip Ahead at the moment,
Okay.
should a bug arise where I need to do a format reinstall, there's no real easy way for me to opt back into Skip Ahead.
There's a way.
Oh, yeah.
John,
I know
don't say it.
there's a way.
Do not commit me.
But that being said, is there any plans to make that process a little bit easier and more streamlined for those who are already in Skip Ahead?
So here's why we don't do that. It's because if we have everyone using Skip Ahead, which everyone will want to use Skip Ahead, then the actual product that your family and friends will use, because your family and friends aren't going to be using Skip Ahead, right? They're going to be using the current release that we're working on, not the next one. That release will be far worse for them. So an example I'll give you, and this is a real thing that was news to everyone. When we go overseas, wireless connectivity is not as great as it is right in Washington. It turns out there's power outages. It turns out battery needs to last longer. So if we have our insiders behaving like Seattle, Washington people, all of our insiders, then all of those insiders' communities who you all help with tech. How many of you help people with technology? You are like the tech center of everyone in your life, right? Yep. So imagine them being on the release of Windows and you being on a totally different one and you have no idea what they're talking about. That would be an epic disaster. It would be a disaster for them, it would be a disaster for you, because you would feel intensely frustrated that you can't help these people, and they would be mad at you because you're thinking about 2 years in the future. So we love that some insiders are on Skip Ahead, but we actually really prefer that insiders have a faster machine and a Skip Ahead machine, because most insiders tend to have more, right? Because we know your companies and your communities reach out to you. And it's very hard for us to answer questions for 700 million people, but it's way easier for you to know specifically what your communities are looking for. That's why we don't open it up or make it simple.
Man, do you want to know the technical reason?
Jason did it.
Always. Yeah. I figured we were talking insiders, and so that's like, behind the scenes, Skip Ahead isn't read the same way fast and slow as it would. It's architected completely different. It was done that way, number one, out of a time constraint when it was originally conceived and brought to life. And number two, to operate it in the way that just very thoroughly described the thing before. Way more eloquently than I would have said it. It functions like a light switch, rather than just being an open door that anybody can walk in through. There's no cap for fast or slow or just if 100 million people tomorrow across the planet decide, hey, we're all going to go get faster, walk right in. Right? Skip Ahead has a cap, and so when we hit that cap, it gets put up. And so if everybody can just keep joining, then you can run into the scenario that I'll stop that. So it's literally an architecture difference. So the other piece of it ends up being machine-based instead of NSA-based, right? Which is so when you reformat your
But also you can be on two rings, on two machines.
yeah. Hopefully that helps.
Hello everyone, my name is Danish and I'm a backend developer and I've been developing apps for about 15 years.
Cool.
Early last year I opted for an insider program on my Windows laptop, one of the laptops which I own, and it was initially it felt me awesome. Like I could realize there's a lot of things going on in Microsoft and they are really working on the stuff which people are literally waiting for to come to market and compete with other operating systems. However, late last year, I realized that there are a couple of issues with my development. It's blocking me. Like the Visual Studio keep crashing. Maybe because of the insider program. I'm not sure about that, but I had to roll back my system back to its original state. But I tried really hard, but I couldn't get back my system back to its original state. I couldn't opt out from the inside room, so I had to format my whole system. So was it the case, and it has been fixed now, and can it rejoin inside the program now?
So without knowing specifically what bug you might hit, I will say I'm hoping it's fixed, because anything that's related to installing, operating, continuous use of Visual Studio gets prioritized first because of the data population, not mentioned on internal that's using as well, right? So any bug that's in that bucket doesn't tend to stick around very long. Obviously, it impacts the very significant way. I don't know of any current bugs that are blocking that are in that specific space.
That's the reason I'm not sure whether it is because of the inside the program which I have opted for. But why it didn't allow me to roll back to my original state where I started.
You should have been able to roll back to the previous building machine.
Yeah.
And you weren't able to?
I wasn't.
The previous insider build, or were you trying to jump back to
He was trying to go back to the slow ring, I think. You're trying to go
Back
to
to
retail?
my original state.
He wants retail, I think. You
Oh,
want
yeah.
retail?
So the machine in the Windows level, it only stores whatever your previous build was. It doesn't store a third copy of whatever your original retail state was to roll back to.
Because it becomes huge and takes up your whole hard drive.
It only go back and happens to whatever previous build you want. So if you've taken 5 insider builds and you're saving another 5, the one that's saved is number 4. And that's what you go back to. You can't go back all the way to your original retail state. It does require a format.
No, that is not what I was trying for. I was trying for a stage where I opted for the inside the program at that stage because I created the restore point before I jumped into the inside the program, and I couldn't restore back to that state. So it was keep crashing, so I'm not sure what went wrong.
Which version of Visual Studio?
2017.
2017.
So you took a restore point before you installed an insider build. How many insider builds did you install before you tried to roll back?
About 2 or 3, not sure. Because last year.
Yeah, I mean, that would explain it. Once you jumped into a different, once you jumped into the development cycle, because of the changes between branches, your base, you are not going to be able to use a restore point that is held from a previous edition, right? Because it's when you take an insider build, you jump to another the next feature update that we're working on. So the restore points that you originally had wouldn't hold steady. You could take one where you're at, you would jump up to the next feature update and get an insider build. You could take one at that point, but you wouldn't be able to restore it back because the Windows.hold folder that held that is long gone. So unless you can just jump to one build and you simply are doing the direct rollback, it's actually the same as what I gave you. That's why. It's because there's only one previous version, even if it says there's still a system restore point from something previous.
So is it safe that now you join the program back?
Here's what I have to do to make sure, right? Get a VM, put on the latest fast-ring build, try Visual Studio Code. VS Code is updated way more often than Visual Studio 2017, so you'll get 1, all the new stuff. But 2, you get to see, using like our latest and greatest on our latest and greatest. And please send me feedback on VS Code on fast-ring, because that is a core scenario for us over here. We've got like the dev side of the house over here, and that's the thing we like live and die by. So VS Code doesn't work on fast-ring builds for you. I know it works on fast-ring builds for me, but if it doesn't work for you for whatever reason, because you're trying to use a certain extension or a hack, we need to know that information. Again, like I said at Ignite, we do a lot of testing in-house. We have a series of rings. We have a canary ring, hundreds of people in the company. We have the self-host ring, thousands of people in the company, including partners, third party, etc. And our managers, Satya, him too. And then we've got fast-ring, which goes out to millions of people. But if we in-house try to do all the testing that you guys do, that combination of apps and usage and devices is greater than all of the stars in the sky. We just can't do that testing. And in fact, companies, you don't want us to do that testing. You don't want us to know your configuration. Because if you know your configuration, that means some hacker knows your configuration. And that's a mess. Right? So try that. Try VM, try VS Code, try Custom. Now you got homework. You have to tell me what happens. Okay.
I bet you didn't come here expecting to have homework.
You talk to me, you get homework.
Now you know how I feel with her being my boss. Homework is a constant.
Sorry for smacking your sunburned arm. We're all burnt.
As long as it's not up here, we're good. Shoulders, arms, I'm having to tolerate it.
We're the three lobsters over here.
Okay. It's funny, just so you know, there's like questions that are popping in the chat for the webcast. They're almost identical to what you're asking in the room, which is why I'm not reading their questions out loud. Well, they're self-answering, so like one insider will ask, another insider will answer, I'm like, yep.
Nice.
Go ahead.
So, it's again, from an enterprise standpoint, have you guys thought about having an insider program for Surface firmware and Surface drivers?
Can you say that again? Sorry, I'm like reading all these comments, not paying attention to that.
So, again, from an enterprise point of view,
Yes.
have you thought about having an insider program for Surface drivers and Surface firmware?
Yes, have you?
Oh my god. Dude, you and I, like, let's like make petition signs and storm a building. Okay? We really want to do this. We really want to do this. Now, when we first started the Insider program, it was just for drivers. I don't know if you guys remember that, but way back in the day, this is like 2012 or something, we first made rings, and we only rolled those rings out to like Dell and Lenovo, etc. We're like, try your drivers, it's pre-Win 10. Try your drivers before you start making machines with Win 10. So they would make the drivers, throw them into this pool of insiders that they had who were really their communities. There were people who were like pre-release on Dell and such. And that worked phenomenally well, which is why the first set of OEM devices that came out with Win 10 worked, because they actually tested their drivers before rolling them out to millions of people in one fine day. Surface Team does do this. You do get pre-release surfacing if you are in Insider program. We do all the time. And so we don't have a specific program for Surface drivers, but we do flight them as part of our Insider program. And you'll often see those firmware updates, like quite often. In terms of Surface hardware release, no. The first day they have that thing, you'll know. Because insiders get first dibs, let's be clear. We will throw down with that one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yell.
What's the future of Cortana?
That's dicey.
With me remaining employed?
Okay, next question.
Okay. Do you want the answer or do you want me to be employed? This is the question.
Hello? Yep. The next question might answer the first question. When can we incorporate Google Assistant into Windows 10?
It's like gonna get fired. No. Ask your boss's boss, right?
Ask.
Yeah, that's...
We'll be going to get right on that. Yeah.
The reason I ask this is being someone that was very much a Cortana fanboy when I had a Windows phone. It was all looking really positive. The Invoke speaker never made it to Australia. In order for an ecosystem and a product to work, you have to have all the bits to support it. And that has all seemed to fall by the wayside with Cortana and being a consumer user as such. Google have everything there to make that ecosystem of a support system work really well. If Cortana is not part of that future, then maybe it should be sidelined sooner rather than later, and allow other assistants to be incorporated into the Microsoft ecosystem. So once again, you don't
Alexa does.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So I can't speak for anything about Google Assistant because I frankly don't know. If I did know, I want to stay employed like Donna. But we do, and we have, I guess it's been since I want to say
say October 2017. We've been actively working with Alexa, and so it's been over a year now where you can build Alexa commands and actually integrate it directly with Windows 10, but you can also build Alexa apps that you can, they're even C# libraries and .NET libraries where people are building a lot of integrations. And so we've worked really hard, I know, to improve the Alexa integration with Windows 10 and with Cortana side by side. I don't know anything about Google Assistant, but I mean, it doesn't seem completely crazy to think that if Google did offer those APIs and those SDKs that we could integrate, it wouldn't be unrealistic to think that could be an option too. And I mean, I know you guys would know more than me, but if I'm remembering what I've read correctly with some of the bills, there are going to be some changes to Cortana in the next releases where it's going to be, focused more on like your local machine. So it's that right, we're starting to search into Cortana portions. And I think part of that is, for the reasons you say, is that you need this whole ecosystem of other things, and Cortana is great, and it has a lot of use cases, but Alexa is an option too, for people who want to integrate with other assistants out there.
The other thing to know about Cortana is not just a voice assistant. That is our main AI engine for the company. It's fueled by the main AI engine for the company. Everyone thinks Cortana is this little box that you talk to it, gives you answers. That's not what Cortana is. That was just what we call it on a device. In fact, Cortana is used for a lot of things. Like Cortana's intelligence is used in Outlook all the time. It's the thing that tells you, this is how many hours you didn't pay attention in meetings. It's the thing that tells you, oh, you've got conflicts with these people at this time, you're trying to schedule a meeting. It fuels a lot of the stuff, like, I don't know if you've used our meeting finder time, that thing, find time. And then it fuels a lot of like, it's off hours, don't send this mail. It fuels a lot of these things, and it's going to continue to fuel a lot of Microsoft services because it's part of the graph. Okay, so if you use the Microsoft graph, which you know about this, I'm sure. If you use the Microsoft graph, you get all of this intelligence in Cortana for free. Because if you're able to pull in info, say in Teams, you're able to now use that info across whatever other apps you use the graph to call into. And the goal is that it becomes super simple, and it's able to be like simple commands. We did a whole talk about this at Build Tour, and it was all about how the graph can integrate with whatever other Microsoft services you're using. And a big part of that is funded by Cortana, because we have a ton of user info, right? People are like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that. We're like, okay, cool. How does this relate to the workplace?
And then there's one more tidbit, right? I feel like the third wheel adding on after all of this.
Me too.
So all the important stuff has been said. I'm just going to add one more thing in and say, with the changes of how, from previous feature updates of Windows 10, of how closely linked Cortana and search were to the changes that you've seen in 19H1, I'll just say there's some foreshadowing happening there on things that are to come. I don't make it fired, but when you take two things that are very complex and couple them together, when you decouple them, things change. It's kind of a self-evident statement, obviously, but extrapolate from there, and you can kind of see some things that are going to take place.
Just in general, don't believe everything you read in the news. Especially from some of the sites that are, maybe reporting on myth and folklore a little bit more than reality from Microsoft. There's a lot of speculation right now. We're reading them like one eyebrow raised, like that's very creative. But don't believe everything you read in the news. That's all we'll say. The reason we don't go out there and correct everyone is that's all we'd be doing instead of writing new code, is correcting every blogger who thinks they're a journalist. Okay? Every blogger thinks they're a journalist and reporting news. They're taking bits of our blog, repurposing it and saying, I think this is what it means. We're like, why do you think that? Do you work here? So I wouldn't get too wrapped up on myth and folklore until you see it.
So I guess Windows Live cells are not being deprecated because I read from Zach Rosen, I think.
That kid. Yeah, I said it. Yeah.
Zach Rosen.
Zach, I swear.
And also I'm also one of the people who look very meticulously at design and consistency. Because I also use multiple like tech, not only just Apple. I mean Microsoft. So they kind of have a more consistent approach to like the UI and stuff like that. And I was wondering like when would all the fluent design components would like be actually present in like your music and like the consistency like and you hover and it will open up and those kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So when you think how big the Windows OS is and the number of teams working on it, there are design standards for fonts and functions and things like that. Unless a team is specifically bound to a specific standard, they do have some leeway to kind of put together what they think would look the best, operate the best in a particular space that they're working in, things like that. As an end user, as you mentioned, be perfect if all of them look exactly the same across every app, across every click, right? Part of it is, if you think about things that we've done, such as moving stuff out of the control panel into the settings app, right? We deprecate some things, we spin up some things. The settings app is pretty seamless across the concept of the settings app. Right? When you go right click on the taskbar and it looks a little different. I don't know if it'll ever be 100% parity. I can't predict it in the future, obviously, but as we ramp down some of the old and continue to ramp up the new, like as we've added more things, like as Fluent is taken off and more of that functionality comes into the OS, right? One of the things we've heard a million times is when is Fluent going to show up for feedback hub? I've had that conversation with the feedback hub team.
Like every day.
Repeatedly. I'll put it like that. So it's up to the teams to take the work that other teams are doing and incorporate it to try to drive some of that user experience. You end up in a scenario where teams are prioritizing what they're working on. So it's kind of a give or take. Do you want a new feature to show up? Do you want bugs fixed? Or do you want it to look cool? Because when you're working with a fixed number of resources, aka devs and PMs trying to architect this, which one, this is actually a legitimate question, not asking this to be sarcastic. Like, which one do you want first? What fixes, features, or cool feel?
That's very true. We have to always decide, do we want this to look cool or do we want to make new stuff? But just from a technical point of view, I've worked on the Windows operating system 14 years and I've got 5 versions of Windows, okay, 5. And let me tell you the number of times I fixed the same bug. I fixed bug X. And I'll give a real example. It's in saving a file. Go to save a file, default location should be the last place you save a file. Okay, cool. We changed. Who broke this? I don't know. Put it back, save the last default location. My neighbor down the hallway makes a code check-in, changes the default location. I go to look at my bug again. Why is this changed? Change it again. Every time you change a line of code, you introduce 3 bugs. That's just facts, right? Am I wrong? Right. So every time you change a line of code, so think about the Windows operating system, which is older than you. Okay. Now, every time we touch a line of code in something that is legacy, like say legacy, someone's like, oh, font control panel doesn't have Fluent. I'm like, why are you in font control panel in the first place? Why did you find it? Where's that endpoint? I will delete it right now. No. But if I go change font control panel, I will break 250 lines of code. And guess what? Then I have to fix those 250 lines of code. Once I fix those, I would break in 750 lines of code. And I have to fix those 750 lines of code. Next, I have not created any new features in 20H1 because I've been fixing font control. Real scope. So we have to make really hard choices. There's certain classes of bugs we will always fix. Data loss, security, crashes, hangs. We will always fix those always. Ones we will fix sometimes. UI inconsistencies, etc., etc. Ones we will rarely fix, legacy. If it didn't exist before Win 10 and it's a legacy UI thing, we're likely not going to fix it unless we're doing a major tooling overhaul. And that's just how it will be because that's how we have the bandwidth to keep adding new features. Our Windows engineering team has not grown, nor should it. You don't throw more engineers at the problem. That's actually a worse thing to do. So imagine the team size will stay the same, but our UI is actually like double, triple, quadruple. Does that make sense?
I guess sort of following on from that as well, how do you prioritize
So, great question. How do you prioritize new features versus what's next? It all comes down to the business. It all comes down to the business. It's all about what the humans need at that time, right? And often we'll change direction. We'll say, okay, this is going to be a release focused heavily on new features around inking. You guys know this? There's a whole entire release around inking because we've got a lot of feedback from people, especially in education, architecture, and design, that you've introduced mixed reality, but we really have no great way to do design using a pen. You've released all these new Surface devices with pens, but there aren't a lot of apps that support inking. So we said, there aren't a lot of apps that support inking. So let us be the change we see and have Windows Sketchpad and have like the ruler and have sticky notes supporting, have OneNote supporting, have all of these inking support in the operating system. So we worked on that heavily. And after a year, a full year, creators update, fall creators update, people said, actually, we don't use inking that much. After all that, right? So then we have to prioritize and say, you know what is the next set of feedback that we're getting? We could sit and fix all of the inking bugs, or we can look at all the companies giving us feedback like, yo, actually, we need to keep our CEOs from clicking on links they get in the mail. So AppGuard is born, right? So every single IT pro wrote us and says, how do we keep our CEO from clicking on shit they get in the mail, right? And how do we do that? The best way to do that is to make it very, very difficult for them to click on things and open like potentially bad things on your operating system. So we created this virtualized window in Edge. But you will see this over and over. It comes from feedback from customers because they're like, this is a huge issue. Same with security.
Just two more questions.
Oh, wow.
Right, so
Go.
I use OneNote a lot in university, and I saw my professor using his iPad. Like there's an app that he uses for like writing notes and stuff. And I kind of like was wondering if the feature that like you could have separate pages in like one page of OneNote, and then if you put this a separate A4 page, for example, like it just instead of infinitely scrolling down. And then, is there an option to turn that into a PDF so that you can share it with your mates, like something like that?
I wish I had somebody from OneNote here to answer.
Sonia, always. Sonia, to the rescue. Come on all our webcasts on
Sonia isn't an option to flip over another API page like you mentioned in OneNote at the moment. It's a really good piece of feedback. It's something that I can see would be really useful, so that would be worth submitting. The printed PDF is probably best actually through the native Windows file print dialog because Windows has a limited PDF printer in it. So that probably the best case scenario you can get right now without OneNote having a specific PDF save option itself is Windows does have an inbuilt PDF printer. You're talking about using OneNote on an iOS device, aren't you?
Like I mean, using it I use the service for myself, and I find myself using it as my notebook. Like I write my notes here and stuff, and sometimes I just want to share it like to a mobile device or like anything else.
Yeah.
And it's useful if it's like in a PDF file.
Yeah.
And it's like like a conventional document.
Yeah. So I haven't tried it myself, but Windows definitely does have an inbuilt printed PDF printer that is application agnostic. So try it and see if it works. Let us know.
So how about Groove Music? Like I already like this ad in Groove Music.
Music? Did you just say Groove Music?
Yeah,
Groove Music. Yeah.
RIP. Yeah, it's Spotify now.
I still use the app. Like it's
Yeah,
really
the app is good. The app is good. The app is good. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's this Spotify ad. I already got Spotify just so that I could get rid of the ad, but it's still there. Is it like a way to remove the ad? Like, you want me to show it to you?
Wait, what?
Wait, you're saying
say the whole
in
thing.
the group there's a Spotify ad, but you installed Spotify, but the ad's still there.
I mean, like, it says to get Spotify, it's free and it's for millions of people that join now. Like, on the, you know, when there's like the hamburger menu, then below it, like just before the settings, there's on top of it a Spotify banner. Okay, how do I get rid of it?
So now I'm working off of a bit of memory here, so if I get this wrong, don't yell at me too badly. When we deprecated Groove,
oh,
Yeah, it's not an actively supported application any longer.
Like several years ago.
Yeah. What's that? Yeah, I mean, we didn't go take it off people's machines or anything.
It's there, but we don't
yeah,
push new features.
But we don't do any active development for it. For those folks that had subscriptions on
I don't have a subscription.
yeah. Part of what we did was we set up a scenario with Spotify and encouraged users to move over to that other platform. For the ad staying there, I will simply put there is no development work that's going to change any of that. You will always see that permanently and forever for as long as you use the app. There's no changes coming to it.
Like what? Yeah.
My name is Abraham. I work in the operational technology. Basically, we use the IT pieces for different set of applications in the process facilities or in the trains or whatever it is. So my question is about the Windows 10 because technically those systems are not connected within the network only. So all the apps like Cortana, Mail, Stores, all stays there which never receives any update. But we find a option that long-term service branch is an option which don't have any of these features but various documentation available. So is there any plan with Windows 10 to get rid of, or we can disable it, we can remove these features and come up with a plain Windows 10, or can we get some more documentation about the Windows long-term service branch which doesn't have any of these things in the application? Because these are not updatable by the Windows Update Services because these are the store apps and they are unpatched and they are still there for whatever time. If any bugs with this, it becomes a security vulnerability and the system becomes vulnerable. So we are in some situation.
Sure. So for those on the webcast, the question's relating to removing inbox apps, especially in an enterprise environment. So as we've gone from release to release, the number of inbox type apps that can be uninstalled, removed, like permanently removed from user, like in user view, has increased. It's because of the way they were originally incorporated into the OS. There's had to be work done to allow them to be permanently removed. That continues to change over time. There isn't, obviously, as you well know, research this quite a bit, given the question that you have. There is no current way just to wipe them all out. So each app, there has to be work done to make it removable in like a permanent fashion, so that when there are updates on it, doesn't just randomly reinstall itself. Because that was one of the things that we heard was, hey, I removed this, I took a feature update, and it's back. Why? Right? It's good feedback, right? Somebody took the time to remove something, why wouldn't you put it back? And so the teams are actually actively doing the work to number one, honor those types of requests so that we don't put things back and they take it out. And number two, to allow for scenarios such as what you're describing, that when you don't want end users taking or using these apps, or if they're never going to get updates, why do we need them there to begin with, to be able to remove them and then use whatever images or deployment that you use out to those systems. So more work continues to be done. It's a work in progress.
Claire.
And also, called Windows IT Pro Center. It talks about the current state of how to set up these images, and it talks about some of the configuration options that are available to you.
Is there any chance of getting more documentation about the long-term service branches?
Sorry, say it again?
There is a Windows called long-term service branch. TSB.
Yeah,
it's only in the Microsoft side. I can see one paragraph which discourages to use it. Okay, other than going for if you are having an MRI machine or something, use this. Otherwise, don't go for it. That's the only documentation which we find in Microsoft side.
Sure. There is documentation on LC now. I would say that the rule of thumb is if you use Office on that product, on that Windows version, then LTSC is not the option you should be pursuing.
No. Windows. TSB is the application. We understand the application of a specific application. That's it. It doesn't need Windows or anything. So
okay.
But the problem is that to evaluate this option, no documentation available.
Right. I would say it should be on docs.microsoft.com with all the information about LTSC.
we get our way and hit the same cadence as fast, hopefully once a week.
There's the quality, right? Skip ahead is really ahead.
What do you run on your personal machine?
Yes.
What do you run? What do you guys run on your personal machines?
Well, we have 4.
My main machine
Yeah.
that I run every day is on solo, so it's faster than fast. It's fun.
When I travel, I take 2. One on slow, one on the most recent. So that one's usually let's get that.
Hello, it's one. Another small business question. When you install Windows 10 Pro, why is Candy Crush installed by default?
That is such a good question.
It just doesn't look professional. And then I have to go around and modify it manually and right-click and uninstall on all the client machines or when I set up someone's laptop.
Blair?
He's like, why are you asking me this question?
So one of the things is that we have when we say Windows 10 Pro, right? There are many people who use it for jobs, like who work in a company. But there's just many people who want it. They don't really work in a company. They don't use it with like a domain join or anything like that. They just want a pro machine. They don't want Win 10 home. This is like, right, it's what Candy Crush thinks they do, right? It's one of those things, you think most people don't want Candy Crush, but the sheer number of people who use Candy Crush is a lot of people. Like, you may not use Candy Crush, no one you know may not use Candy Crush, but there's a lot of people playing Candy Crush in a lot of meetings and a lot of coffee shops. I wish no one played Candy Crush. I don't play Candy Crush. I wish they would like read a book or write some software, but they don't. Instead, they're playing Candy Crush. So if I could eradicate the universe of Candy Crush, I would do that, but I can't, because then I would have probably 7 million people send me mean emails saying, why'd you get rid of Candy Crush? True story.
I think we can just get some bonus points for taking the Xbox app out of Windows.
I would say, I know this doesn't solve the problem, but if you're doing this a lot, you can use an automation tool like Terraform or Ansible and just run a couple of scripts so that when you're setting up a machine, it'll automatically remove Candy Crush. Because I have things like that for when I'm setting up like a base Windows image or a base Mac OS image or Linux image or whatever, where I automatically install and remove a number of things. And one of the things I do with my Ansible playbook is on Windows thing is remove Candy Crush and some of the other apps. So it doesn't fix, the underlying thing. At least you have to do it over and over again. You can just run a couple commands instead of having to go through all that place.
I have a question. What are you two most excited about that's coming out of Microsoft right now? Because we have a very different view in Windows compared to our Azure team.
Do you want me to start? I do, but it's not a Windows thing.
It doesn't have to be. Out of Microsoft.
Microsoft in general. Okay. So I am a volunteer with the State Emergency Services. I have been for the past 12 years. And the thing that I'm most excited about even getting involved in is our AI for Good program. We've launched a humanitarian relief part of that. And so the thought of using some of that technology that allows people to help out in a natural disaster. We have a few here in Australia. That's the most exciting thing to me that the company's working on right now.
So I have a couple. So first, I guess on the Windows side is all the different updates that are happening around WSL, the subsystem for Linux. I love that. And the stuff that's coming in the next build where you'll be able to make even edits to divide Linux OS, and there are going to be some changes too about performance. There's going to be some performance issues related to some of the file system stuff. So I'm really excited about that. And then I'm really excited with some of just our kind of increasing focus around AI, not just AI for good, but around some of the ways where we're working on a number of services to really let anybody build tools with AI, regardless of how much coding background they have, because I feel like that is one of the next big frontiers for development stuff. And so the more we can democratize that process, the better, and that's seeing the efforts that are being done for that are really exciting.
I think that's really, really important. Everyone, in the future, everyone has to be a little bit technical. right? If we're moving into this world where your face is going to open your door, if your face doesn't open your door one day, you need to debug that. You're not going to call a locksmith, you're going to call a software engineer. So you need to explain, my face is not opening the door. They're like, okay, what did you try?
It's a sunburn.
It's Jason's fault. So you have to debug a little bit, right? You have to do what a developer does. You have to reduce variables, last known good state, and get to a point where you can speak code. Right now we speak, English, we speak Spanish, we speak all these things. We know how to read and write. In the future, coding in that language, that is literacy. Code is the modern literacy. So I'm insanely excited that Microsoft has decided that, you know what? We're going to be the ethical leader in this, making sure that tech is truly democratized and it's accessible to anyone on the planet. So that means people who are highly technical, like most of you in the room, but people who are aspiring, like many people you know. That means in enterprises and companies, it's things like Microsoft Flow and Power Apps. Who knows what those are? Those are code-free ways to solve some of your problems. Like, if this happens, do that. If that happens, do this. And then Power Apps is code-free ways to get apps built for your company, and your boss will be like, you're a genius. You're like, I know. And then suddenly you get a raise because you're writing apps for your company by dragging and dropping bits from. Now, that's just the future, right? It's happening. It's going to happen. The other thing that I'm insanely excited about is the fact that Satya doesn't think about technology for the next 5 years. He doesn't think about it for 10 years. He's like, where are we going to be in 20 years? And that's why there's a huge team at Microsoft working on quantum computing. I don't even know what that means. I was like, someone explained it to me in a tweet because I just cannot understand what your people are talking about. But there's a team working on a thing called a QDK, a quantum dev kit. So think about what that means. I don't know. So if you know, please explain it to me. Our friend Janet, works on the quantum dev kit. She's the head developer for it. And I had a meeting with her and she explained it to me and I did not understand one single word she said. They're working on building a quantum computer and they're working on a quantum dev kit. I don't know what it's for, but apparently it's important because there's a whole bunch of companies and a bunch of research getting in line. I'm still wrapping my head around AI and they moved on to quantum. It makes me so excited that Microsoft's not a company that's stuck in the past. We're not just like stuck in the past or chasing the next big trend. We're making the trend. We are creating the future of tech. Everyone's like, oh, how are you going to keep up with tech? We're like, we're not going to keep up, we're going to create it. So that's why I'm really, really excited to be at Microsoft right now.
Wow.
I yell at him all the time.
Yeah, so again, I'm a tough time following their acts, but for me, there's really two things. Number one, the whole accessibility push that you've seen over the past year, 2 years, right? That's not going to stop anytime soon. And there was something interesting that I read on Twitter, I think 2 days ago. I'm losing track of time. Joys of traveling. It was related to being where you can be productive. Right? So if you were using an OS that has functionality that you need, but you can't use it because you can't hear it, you can't see it, you can't input to it appropriately, what good is that OS going to do for you? Right? So on the flip side, if you can sit there and look at Windows, you go back to 3 or 95 and XP compared to the accessibility functionality that you saw in 8 and now especially in Windows 10. Right? The number of people that doing these efforts has opened up this technology to, and then everything that is available on the Windows platform, the number of folks that we are touching across the entire world just continues to grow exponentially. My girlfriend's father is blind, so being able to have him, interact with Windows and do pretty much everything that he wants to do, from listening to sports to sending emails, right? All without the ability to see what he's doing. Every step that gets taken forward makes him a little more productive. So, it's a little personal to me, but at the same time, I know how many people get that type of technology affects. And then selfishly, I love the fact that this is where I use my radar word. You're not going to find this in the dictionary. What I call the application of Windows, where the more functionality that we can break into standalone chunks that can be updated individually, either via the store or through whatever service, right? It doesn't take a feature update bug or to add new functionality. The more teams they can update chunks of code on a regular cadence, whether they want to do it every month, every week, they can do it every day, they're probably not going to. But just to have the option there enables them to get code out to everybody, insiders and retail users alike, faster and hopefully with higher quality to make the end user experience that much better.
Again, all great acts to follow. I think that the thing that is most exciting for me coming out of Microsoft right now is how we're using AI to make other people experts. In the Office suite particularly, I can think of, like, my background is a lot of spreadsheets. I can see that some of the changes that we're bringing in with data and insights to be able to say that my background and expertise is being democratized and anyone can start doing, it's not pivot tables anymore, it's more advanced data types that show up in that. It's things like PowerPoint Designer where anyone can take a really simple image, drag it, and it looks great. I'm not a visual person, but I'm glad that they're using AI to help me be an expert at visualization kind of work. And that's just the start. I hope that the AI revolution is not isolated to Microsoft and Office products, but it's being dropped into apps that all kinds of developers are using. And so the more that we can do that kind of stuff, that's what really excites me.
Other questions?
Other questions? Yeah, back there in the back corner.
Back in the back.
So while the mic's being off, back a question that was asked in chat that I think is really funny. How many lines of code are in Windows? There's like 42. It's literally billions of lines of code. Like, it's crazy and as huge as you can imagine it being. That's actually the answer.
Billions.
I look after about 300 to 500 people, and most of the time our users are actually on individual machines or a shared machine. With the inside program, my boss is going to regret that I was even acting on it.
Yay! I love regretting bosses. It makes me so happy. Yeah.
I wanted to do a sandbox and get us in front of the curve. With shared machines, how is the insider, is it still work with using one account but multiple people use that same machine?
I mean, yeah, so the build that's on the machine is the build that's on the machine. So it doesn't matter, like, if you have one user or 10 users or whatever, like, there's only one active running image unless you're trying to use something like Bellevue where you can jump between multiple images and set specifically. So unless you're creating an environment where you're forcing the user to choose which instance they're moving upon moving the machine, so let's presume you're not doing that, then the machine has one image, it would be inside of hopefully camera and then whatever user would be logging in, they would log into the profile and do their work as usual.
That still allows us to do the admin and user levels?
I don't believe there would be any scenario. Like, is your environment like an AAD environment?
It's, I have multiple facets of the company because we're all actually on one side. So we have developers, we have engineers, we have processing network, which unfortunately is still Windows 7. And we're trying to move it off of that. We actually do have one extra machine. If there's one kind of software. So, yeah, it's an area that a lot of my staff want the latest and greatest all the time, and some of the, even with the feature updates, it's taking us 2 to 3 hours per machine, and maybe 300 plus machines. It kind of sucks.
Yeah, so I'll say this, I don't know if there being any problems to do that. I don't think it would be an issue, but I can obviously take some notes, we can get some follow-up information from you, do some homework, and then make sure I give you a complete answer.
Just one thing. Yay! You went to Ignite. Yay, your boss is scared. We love delinquent behavior. If you need help running experiments in your company and remaining employed, ask us. We're really good at this. And we would love to help you do like one small experiment to upgrade like a set of machines to Win 10, et cetera, et cetera. We worked with lots and lots of governmental and financial institutions to do that. And it really is a matter of starting with like 1%, right? Or less than 1%, saying, okay, this is going to be on one developer's machine, one user, and one person in HR, or whatever it is. And making sure that the apps and the infrastructure and the process and the tools you guys use continue to work. And once they work, then you've got a bunch of friends who are like, this works great. And then you've got a bunch of people with FOMO, like, wait, why don't you think I'm technical enough to get it? You're like, yeah, sorry, I don't think so. And then they're like, no, I want Windows 10 too. This is a real story from Auckland Council. Auckland Council. So then Paul, our insider, is like doling out Windows 10, to people who ask. He's like, yeah, you're in HR, I don't think you can handle Windows 10. They're like, no, I can handle Windows 10. It's going to be great. And then finance is like, wait, you gave it to HR but not finance? That's not cool. Then legal hears about this. They're like, we want Windows 10. He's like, I want it too. So this went on in Auckland Council. So if they can do it, you can do it. And we really want to help you.
On the back of the mention about the accessibility features and things like that, I'm a massive fan of a lot of the accessibility features that we've put in Windows. I'm trying to find an excuse to get it either my wife won't let me. I personally don't use too many of the accessibility features in Windows, but I blew a customer's mind the other day with the color filters. The gentleman was referring color line and it just happened to come up in conversation. Now, are we working on any ways to enhance the, the ability to actually notice that these features are even in Windows? I think that's what I was looking for. Because, I use the color filters. I mentioned that I use this in grayscale sometimes for productivity, just to be zoning what I'm doing. But the fact that it can be used for other things and it's almost non-existent to anybody else.
So what would help? Like, what is an idea of discoverability? Because we're really bad at this, right? We make lots and lots of cool stuff and no one knows it's there because we're like, made a cool thing, move it on.
Well, I notice whenever we do a new build, we always have Edge pop up. And it's always, hey, welcome to the new version of Windows, or the best version of Windows ever, or something like that. Those sorts of places I tend to find pretty useful for it. I know a lot of us generally just skip through the GUI, but having something in there, potentially, we always have Cortana there to speak for the two maybe necessarily be able to see what's on the screen during out of box. But having something there potentially, hey, if you need this feature, this is something cool we've added.
The Edge one is a really cool idea. I think we've done that before, right? Didn't we showcase new things in Edge?
Yeah.
We did, right?
There is an easy access section in the settings. I'm going to put myself on the hook here.
This is always scary doing this because then I end up committing myself to doing things. So,
Commit.
I know. Yeah. One of the things,
Witnesses.
and I have email proof of this, or I'm not making this up on the fly. Quite literally yesterday, I was talking to Donna in the way, and one of the things that it seems super obvious what you say out loud, right? But until somebody says it out loud, and like my mom, I teach her new Windows features all the time. Right? I went from back in the day of I taught her how to use Word, I taught her how to connect to the internet. I blew her mind when they upgraded to broadband, and she's like, "What do you mean I don't have to sign into AOL anymore?" That's how far back we've gone here, right? I remember the first time I sent her a smartphone for her birthday. I called her up. The tracking information was wrong. I got there a day before, so I called her when it said it arrived, and she was like, "Oh no, I've already hooked it up to Wi-Fi. I've already connected to the store. I've already installed games." I'm like, "All right, my job's done here." Right? But the truth of it is, there's still a lot of stuff that she doesn't know about the operating system as a whole. Right? So one of the things that I'm contemplating doing, and maybe y'all can be the first person to tell me yes or no, because the only two people that I told this to is Donna and Blake. Would it be helpful if I created a content series that says, and we're not talking super high technical, right? I know you as insiders, most of the stuff you would already, right? But friends and family, people that you interact with and you talk to, right? That says, hey, do you want to put Instagram on your PC, right? Let me talk to let me introduce the store and how to use it. Do you want to, any number of things, right? I can't sit here and just come up with tons of ideas, but I don't know, once a month we're kind of like, let's introduce these 4 things to you. Here's a short link so it's easy to share with friends and family, and a teaser link for the next month and a link to the previous month's content to you navigate. Worthwhile? Am I crazy? Is it a good use of my time?
It would clearly save me using quick assist with my parents. So I'd be all for it. On the back of it, I just want a quick question. With the settings and things like that,
Yeah, before you move past, you mentioned the changes in Ubi. We do different experiments around different parts of the operating system. With Ubi specifically, I don't know how many of you read the Insider newsletter. It either went out today, yesterday, tomorrow, I'm not sure what time zones. You just got it? Okay, so there's a link we're trying something, some iterative designs on Ubi. I don't remember where it ends in the newsletter. So go home and read it. We are looking at tweaking some things in there, and so a shout out to the Insider newsletter that there's things buried in there that are like, hey, that's getting it. They're talking about it. So yeah.
So I like to design my start menu the way I like it. It works for me. As I mentioned before, that I reset computers on a frequent basis. Is there any chance of me being able to synchronize that tile layout, my options for that? I can sync like my theme colors and all this sort of jazz, but there are weird ways to do this. But I'm just wondering, is there any plans to potentially have it just so it syncs with the rest of the settings?
That'd be cool.
We are already getting upvotes. Did you put it in the feedback?
Haven't, but I should.
You absolutely should. You should share with our friends. I would upvote it.
He'll upvote it. He'll upvote it. He'll upvote it.
The
We've got
thing
lots
is,
of takers.
We know folks on the shelf team. So
We're on the shelf team.
that was the joke. But I guess it's one of the, I hate when I make a joke that the people that work at Microsoft are going to get, and then the rest is like, okay, that's cool. Sorry, I did not mean to leave everybody out. Yeah, we are on the show team. We know the folks who are responsible for these type of features. So we can go and nudge it. I can go knock on the door for a good reason as opposed to getting people up.
There's a question on the webcast. Someone says, what is Windows written in? What is up with this link? Okay. What is Windows written in? Like code? It's C++. So how many C++ coders in the room? Yes. See? It's the only language I know. So everyone's like, do you know JavaScript? No. Do you know C#? No. I only know C++ because that's the only thing I'm ever have to work in, which is bad. So I'm now learning JavaScript very painfully. But now, instead of JavaScript, I'm just going to learn TypeScript so I can use a compiler like a human.
You're thinking about having a start setting to Rome. Don't forget the enterprise as well. Maybe we can do it by UAV, people in-house things as a necessary issue with the icon placement. But we lock down the start menu.
That's right.
Put a partially lock down the menu place, and then people put all other stuff on there. We love that to be able to run. But also when you're doing any features like that, the enterprise is turned off as well by the policy.
That is very good feedback. Enterprise.
I'm taking notes on
He's
what
writing
both
this
of you have
down.
said.
Yeah.
You can actually do that.
Yeah.
Group policy. You can explore that X enough. You can really consider one word. And then that almost acts like a regular profile, but not a regular profile. I've done that. So, it does work.
I can bring my demo machines, so yeah.
I've got 2 questions. First one is, where did no downtime for customer service come from?
Okay. It's like.
So I'm known for making stuff up. Part of it is because I worked at Microsoft for a long time and know that you can say the most random things and it becomes like in the product, it becomes the thing everyone says. So instead of like boring corporate things,
I'm just saying.
I mean, Microsoft just has some like really weird sayings. They make no sense. It's like,
Do this. What are some weird Microsoft like taglines that make no sense whatsoever.
They're usually like made by marketing, student marketing people, but they're asleep, so it's fine. Usually, upper management marketing make like the dumb slogans. So I said, I'm just going to make up my own, but they'll be memorable and no one will know what it means, but at least they'll be memorable and different. So no downtime for Hustle as a Service. It's just like, we keep talking about everything as a service, Windows as a service, Office as a service, this as a service, that as a service. And someone asked me, I think I was been on the job for a week, like, how many do you sleep? I'm like, well, I'm a horrible insomniac, and I really like working in Insider program because you guys never sleep, actually. Right? The cool thing about having insiders in every country in the world, even Antarctica, by the way, is I always have someone to talk to. No matter what hour of the day it is, I can tweet who's awake, at least 6 people. And we say it's 6 takers. Why are you doing? So there is no downtime. Right? There is no downtime. So we call what we do hustling because it's running around yelling at people to do what we say. And there is no downtime for Hustle as a Service. At first, our PR team's like, what the hell does that mean? We're like, we can't tell you, it's insidery. And then they don't realize it doesn't actually mean anything, but it really does mean that there's no downtime for Hustle as a Service.
All right, thank you. My final question is, we've been asking you those questions. So I was wondering, is there anything specific from the Insider program that we want insiders to focus on? Is there any, obviously, you're improving security, you're improving preparation, you're developing new features and what have you. But is there anything outside of that we really care about, that we want insiders to really focus on, apart from just using Windows? You know what I mean?
Ooh, so you threw on an add-on in the end that got me.
What?
Like, I had this whole thought process laid out. I'm like, oh, I've got this awesome answer. And he's like, outside of Windows. I'm like, wait a minute, screeching off.
Yeah.
What I mean is I've seen lots of comments about splitting the Insider program into a consumer side and an enterprise, because from an enterprise thing, all we care about is stability. That's number one. We're not necessarily focused on all the cool features, even though they're amazing. People come in there, they go to work, and they open their email and they start working on it. Whereas I suppose a consumer hasn't got that constraint, so they're playing around with a lot of really cool features that from an enterprise you don't get time to do. Well, you do, but you know what I mean? So from an enterprise side of things, from an IT admin, it would be really good to understand if there's anything that I can go to my insiders and say, hey, start focusing on this, we really want to get some feedback on it, you know?
Yeah, so I'm gonna throw you one super easy answer that doesn't directly answer what you're asking, but I think it's important to say more broadly. And then I'll give you a more detailed answer to kind of what you're asking. For things to focus on, when we host the bug bashes, one of the things that we do is on a rotating daily basis for the week of the bug bash, we put in an announcement every day on what the core focus areas are. And as we launch each day, the new quests roll in that are directly related to what the topic or topics of the day are. So if you participate in a bug bash, you read those announcements, there's very specific things that we rotate day by day by day. And we do this obviously every time we're rolling through a feature release, right? We just hit the bug bash in January like it was for our 19 instrument. So that's one way to focus on a rotating set of things that may not necessarily be the way you normally use a computer. So it's a good way to discover new features, new functionality, or just something that exists that you may never poke around before. To touch on the more enterprise-related focus that I think your question is going down, one of the most important things, and it's really the reason that the Insider program was created for, even before the kind of more broad focus towards business and enterprises kind of came forth out of the program. It's really about the diversity of hardware and software that exists. The broader number of machines that are different from one another that you can have users participating on. And I get it, right? Especially in business, everybody wants the latest and greatest and fastest machine. I mean, I'm guilty of it, right? I mean, I'm using a Surface Book too. It's not like I'm using an HP that I bought back in 2010, which I have one that I'm actually fighting on. So I guess technically I'm doing both. That
that is a huge asset, right? Whether it seems like it is or not, because like I said, the diversity of what's available, it tells us if we're creating a feature or if we've modified something that if we're starting to make the usability of an older piece of hardware, if we're grinding that to a halt, right, then we need to optimize something or potentially make a change. Like there's assuming the feature isn't just something that we can't remove, right? There's hopefully something we can do to make it a better experience, right? And then the software side of things is the exact same scenario. Businesses use software very differently than your standard retail or consumer, whatever you want to call it, right? Your standard, you don't use software that my mom uses, right? I'll draw that distinction. It's probably the easiest way to say it. The things that she does on her machine are different than what I do, and they're different than what you do probably at home versus even at work when you stop and think about it, right? So anything that you can do to help drive diversity into the program, which means the software that you're using, the hardware you're using, and the way that you use them, that's in the medium range, not just for you, not just for your business, not for your enterprise and your coworkers. It trickles down both ways. Right? Things that get discovered in business trickle down to consumers. The things that are discovered on the consumer side flow backwards into affecting business as well. So it's like the application card, don't get that everything, right? And maybe, it may have an immediate impact on the business side of the world, but how many people click random stuff at home and then having to call and get tech support because, I've got this thing and I can't open this app, my antivirus isn't working right. Just have to think about all that kind of stuff. It connects both ways. So it doesn't mean anything here, but it really is, if you want to do something that has a really big impact, step outside of the way you do things on a day-to-day basis a little bit. I'm not asking you to install 100 new apps, right? Install one extra one and just try it. Or if you've got an old laptop sitting in a closet that you're not doing anything with, hire that and give it a try. It's not doing anything anyway. So even if it's something as simple as just testing the installation process on it, doesn't install the new build, that's telemetry that would come back and tell us, hey, there's potentially a category of devices that won't be able to take the next update. It really is that impact, even if you don't use that device on a daily basis.
The other thing is have people in your life use insider builds. I don't mean go hijack your machine and put it on, but if you do have a secondary machine, when you do have family or friends gatherings, right? We all use technology for things, looking stuff up, making reservations, sending email browsing. And we know that most of the people you support don't have as complex techniques as all of you in the room. So we don't want to build an operating system that caters to us, because we're really like 1% of the population, honestly we are. Right? You think about the Insider program, 16 million people, 16 million of us. You think about how many users there are of Windows. I think there's like 1.5 billion. Windows 10 is like 700 million. We are not normal. We are not normal. Right? Like, we just aren't. The fact that this is what we're doing on Saturday night and it's a real rager means this is not normal behavior, guys. And that's okay. It's wonderful to be nerddom, right? We love nerddom. But everyone we support is not that. And what I really don't want is us to build products for nerds. That's not helpful. It's good to build products for nerds, but it's an and. These products should also work for your accountants, your teachers, your partners, your parents, your grandparents. And I'm not saying those people cannot be technical. I'm just saying they're the ones who generally come into the store and talk to our lovely friends and say, where's the on button? Right? Right? They're like, I bought this machine, I don't know how to turn it on. It's a real problem. So these are the people we want to build things for. And going forward, it's going to be more and more and more of the population, right? So we need help with that. If you've got a secondary machine, put on a more stable build. Slower is a great option, and have people try things. Have people do the things they would do on a PC, just on this device. Because it'll give us telemetry and feedback that is so different than the telemetry and feedback you give us. You'll say, yeah, this control panel is not fluent. No one has any idea what that means outside of this room, right? Like, you should not know. Like, your accountant should not know what fluent is unless they're a designer. So, but they're going to try to do things like, oh, weird, calculator doesn't quite work for accounting. That's a problem, right? Calculator does not work for accounting is a real issue that we need to fix like tomorrow morning, right? Or this, guess what, this calendar actually doesn't account for the calendar. And as we move forward and we think about amplifying the operating system, like Jason's saying, Edge is like the first great way. All of you gave us feedback that it's a pain in the ass to wait twice a year to get a browser update. Now you're going to get update whenever they're ready to update. You're going to start seeing more of that at Microsoft all up. So we need that feedback from, we call it, Mary Jo Foley calls it the normals in your life, right? That's what we really do need to build these operating systems for. What?
Too much time together
Yeah,
is true.
way too much time
Matching
together.
sunburns.
Same kind of
Yeah.
problems. I would say if you are supporting people, let us know. Say, hey, this is on behalf of my piano teacher. He or she can't do X, Y, and Z. And that's a pretty powerful signal to let us know that, hey, this isn't just a one-off type problem, that the underrepresentation of piano teachers in this is what we look to you guys to help us solve, is that you guys know your neighbors, you guys know the people that you support a lot better than we can ever know them, and we can ever talk to them on Twitter, because chances are they aren't talking to us on Twitter.
No.
That's what y'all do, except for me, I don't talk on Twitter. But that's what we're looking at, saying, hey, you guys know your community a lot better than we ever can, so please help us with that.
So you do understand that we almost don't use Windows for those things that you've lost all that. It's gone.
They don't use
They
it
do it
for
on iOS or on Android.
I think 700 million people would bank to death.
They might have a computer, but that's not what they're using it for. They're not using it for browsing and email and all that stuff.
Tell us what they're using it for.
Browsing and email is good.
I don't know anyone who checks their email on their PC except me.
We know 750 million people. We have elaborate data. He's doing it now. Yeah.
We literally have somebody not paying
Yeah.
So I do it on that. I check my email on that, not on my laptop.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But you are not the only one in the world. There's a lot of people.
My question, moving on from what you're saying, is how much ground is Microsoft willing to concede to iOS and Android and Chrome before you draw a line and say, you know, we don't want to get out of the consumer space, we don't want to leave it inside. They can't be everyone's development stuff. It's still there, it's still reasonably successful. Nobody knows about things. You guys seem to me to be going exactly the same way.
So I understand your frustration. Have you ever been to Lagos, Nigeria?
No.
Okay. So I spend a lot of time in Lagos, Nigeria. I spend a lot of time all over the world, away from places with privileged places with electricity. And in a place like Lagos, Nigeria, if you can find an iOS device, it's because someone moved overseas and came back. They're not available there. The way people do all of their work is on a PC. And not a shiny Surface Book that you buy in a Microsoft store, but rather an HP that has been refurbished from 2005.
So they're 10 years behind.
No, they're 10 years ahead because they're using Azure. It is the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my entire life because they moved from paper records. And I know this because we have a lot of companies in Lagos, Nigeria who we do work with. We went to a hospital. They used to have all paper records. Everything's paper records. You walk in, have a headache, write it on a sheet of paper, put it in a file folder. And then they realized, like, this is too good. If the building burns down, we lose all these records. So we're building data centers there. They said, you know what? We're going to do this cloud thing. What is this cloud thing? Instead of doing what the rest of the world did, US, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, which was, we moved from paper records to Excel spreadsheets on a machine under Hans's desk. We went through that era, right? Excel spreadsheet under Hans's desk. Hans, don't ever go anywhere. Protect that machine. If there's a flood, you take the machine, you flee the building, Hans. That is your job. Sorry if there's any Hanses in here. That was their job. But, and then now trying to convince these companies to move to the cloud is pretty much the most horrific nightmare I've ever experienced. Because they are 100% convinced that their data is safer under Hans's machine in a building that has like questionable earthquake protection than it is in the cloud. And we're trying to explain, like, dude, that's the safest place on the planet. They're like, nope, Hansa's machine. I go to Lagos, Nigeria. Hospitals and paper records. Like, Donna, what should we do? Like, put it in the cloud. They're like, done. So, in many ways, developing nations are ahead of you, and they're ahead of us. They're ahead of the US, they're ahead of Germany, they're ahead of London, they're ahead of Australia, because they are doing this leapfrog thing, and it's magical. And they may not be having the shiny new devices because they can't afford it, but they are running apps and services made by Microsoft that work on any device on the planet. That is the point. Do we care if it's an iOS and Android device? Not so much, because we're using Microsoft apps and services. The amount of money we make on devices, very low, same with Apple, by the way. All of the money in the world comes from apps and devices, apps and services. This is why you can buy an Android phone for $10, $20, $50, $100, $500, $1,000. The money is not from that. Actually, we make money from Android devices, a lot of money. But apps and services, that is why we keep talking about it. And I understand it's frustrating for those of us who grew up in a device-specific world, but honest to God, it does not matter what device you have in your pocket. It matters about the apps and services that you use.
Okay, well, I'll give you a good example of that. I'm a musician, electronic musician, quite active in the local community, I guess. And the amount of really cool new music stuff that's only coming out for iOS, and sometimes iOS, is staggering. It really is. And if I didn't spend 9 hours a day in front of a Mac at work, I'd be all over it. Yeah, it's worrying. Like for me, someone who's always seen Windows as if you want all the apps, that's not the case anymore. So much cool stuff that you can't get from Windows anymore. It's starting to get scary.
But it's not. Because we're in a different space. We're not just saying like, oh, you buy this device and you're locked into this ecosystem forever. If you look at the number of MacBooks sold in the world, that's worrying. Hell yeah. It's not worrying for me. I don't have a MacBook. My lovely friends do. But if you look at the number of MacBooks sold in the world, Apple, by the way, never shared, this is how many MacBooks we sold. We're so proud. No. Why? But it's fine. It's good. It's good. Because there's very few people on the planet who use technology who use no Microsoft product. In fact, it's really, really hard to find. It's like pretty hard to find. Like if you do any sort of accounting and you use anything but Excel, good luck, because it's not going to be right. Even I know that. How much time do we have? We're going to get thrown out in 1 minute. Okay. Last question. Was this helpful? Should we do this again? Yes.
I accidentally paused updates this morning.
Okay.
And then I tried to find a way of unpausing it.
Yeah.
And it's not exposed in the UI. And
Yeah.
noticing in the screen.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if that will be a feature that will be good. I looked in the feedback card and it was free, so I increased the votes by 25%.
Okay. So Jason, if you can just reset to the last release, the rollback. If you paused updating.
Yeah.
And just check for updates again, right?
What, to turn them back on?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just go scan again.
Yeah, the first one I did that an error, and then I revisited the scene, tried again, didn't work. Found it in the registry, changed a bunch of ones and zeros.
Changed a bunch of ones and zeros. I love that.
Went to the registry. I love that.
Went to the registry.
Went to the registry.
We're not a typical group, yo. We ain't a typical group. I love this.
I am but just wondering if it's a good idea to expose it to the UI so that, if you've got a little pause button, change it to a little play button as well, just like on a VCR or something.
That's a great piece of feedback.
I will talk to Josh when I get back to Seattle.
That team is like in our building.
Yeah, I know exactly who owns it. He sits on the opposite side of the hall from me. So I'll go knock on the door.
Okay, so can we ask you a question? And of course, management's sleeping, so we can ask you this time. We imagine a world where any one of you go to a website. Let's call it insider.microsoft.com. Okay, let's imagine such a website exists. I'm not saying it exists or it doesn't exist. I'm just saying imagine that it does. You go to it, you register with your MSA or whatever, and then you get a series of choices. I'm interested in pre-releasing Windows, Office, Azure, Intune, Dynamics, whatever. and then I'm interested in things, and then you get a specific set of emails sent to you, you get notifications based on the things you checked. And these are all offerings from Microsoft. Is this something you'd be interested in? Show of hands, who would be interested?
Okay. The responses on the webcast are, oh my God, how, yes, 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 please, thank you.
And that's how management finds out about our plans. By a show of hands from a room.
The room wanted it. Well, you're going to disappoint these beautiful people? That's just insulting.
Thank you, everyone, for being our co-conspirators. Thank you for battling traffic and coming all the way over here. And next time we come to town, we hope to bring to you all of the shenanigans that we've seen here tonight. And we can say that we co-created it together at this move some zeros and ones around rager on a Saturday night. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everybody on the webcast.
Thank you on the webcast.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Thank you for those of you who stayed up late.
I know
it's super crazy time.
Not
zone.
our managers, though, hopefully.
But, it's awesome. It's appreciated. I think the next one will be back to regular time zone, possibly. We'll see. We'll see. I will share times and dates and all that kind of stuff soon. So stay tuned. So cheers. Enjoy your day, night, wherever you're at. And until then, stay awesome.
Thank you everyone for joining